Ana Ljubičić, a native of the war town of Serbia, was born in 1983. Growing up in Belgrade, Ana pursued her passion for the French language and literature by obtaining a bachelor's degree at the University of Belgrade. In 2005, she decided to emigrate to the United States, where she gained dual citizenship. After settling in Virginia, Ana embarked on a new journey as a hotel housekeeper. However, her dedication, motivation, and compassion soon caught the attention of her employers, leading to a series of prestigious opportunities at high-end hotels and resorts throughout New England. One such establishment was the Wheatley Hotel in Lenox, Massachusetts. While working at the Wheatley, Ana crossed paths with Brian Walsh. At the time, Ana was already in a serious relationship with someone else. However, Ana's divorce provided an opportunity for her to reconnect with Brian Walsh in 2014. Brian Walsh was a complex man with a checkered past. He was the son of a prominent neurologist who ran the neurology department at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Despite coming from generational wealth, he had a complex background that led to his emotional and psychological struggles. According to news reports, Brian's parents neglected him, leaving him feeling unloved and emotionally damaged. Brian's parents enrolled him in a top-notch boarding school in Rhode Island, hoping the quality education would compensate for their lack of attention. However, instead of nurturing him, they sent him away, further exacerbating his sense of abandonment. After completing his education at the boarding school, Brian enrolled at the prestigious Carnegie Mellon University. However, his studies didn't last very long, as he had to leave when he entered a mental health facility. Although Brian's parents had the means to pay for his care, they failed to decide who should take responsibility for his treatment. As a result, he was forced to leave the facility without the necessary support. Brian wore many hats in his life, and his passion for the finer things in life was evident. One news report described an incident where Brian purchased an entire stock of white truffles at a Boston restaurant, showcasing his wealth. Another person shared that even as a teen, Brian exhibited this behavior, wearing a suit and tie and sipping Pepsi in the lobby of a Ritz-Carlton while interacting with high-powered brokers. In 2015, Brian's life took a turn when he met Ana and got engaged. The couple eventually married and had their first child, followed by 2 more children a few years later. Ana and Brian Walsh's life was not without its struggles. The couple faced various challenges, including legal troubles related to fraudulent art dealings. Using Ana's eBay account, Brian listed 2 Andy Warhol paintings as originals. In the description, he claimed that he was being forced to sell them due to a recent remodel. Despite Brian's false claims, someone from California paid $80,000 for the paintings. However, upon receiving the artwork, the buyer discovered the paintings were fraudulent and sued Ana and Brian. The person who purchased the fraudulent paintings accused Ana of using her position in the hospitality industry to gain their trust and allow her husband to sell the forged art in a civil suit. While Ana's precise knowledge of her husband's fraudulent art dealings remains uncertain, she wrote a letter to the judge praising Brian for his role as a stay-at-home father. Despite Ana's best efforts, it was evident that she was also preparing for the possibility of Brian facing a lengthy prison sentence. Ana had already taken steps to move herself and her son's belongings into her Washington, D.C. home, indicating she was planning to make the move permanent. Ana was a remarkable woman. She was an exceptional person, professionally and personally, known for her unwavering dedication and compassion. Everyone around her felt her presence, and her impact on their lives was undeniable. One of the most remarkable aspects of Ana's character was her unwavering commitment to her work. She approached her job with utmost seriousness and never took shortcuts. Her confidence and expertise in her field were evident as she consistently delivered high-quality results. However, despite the demands of her career, Ana's 3 sons held a special place in her heart. She was a devoted mother who prioritized her family above all else. Her tireless efforts were driven by a strong desire to provide her children with the best possible life. Ana's 3 sons were her world, and she cherished every moment she spent with them. Despite frequently being away on business trips, Ana ensured she was always within reach. Modern technology such as text messages, phone calls, and FaceTime allowed her to stay connected with her children regardless of physical location. This constant communication provided her with a sense of reassurance and allowed her to maintain a strong bond with them. While Ana traveled for work, Brian remained home caring for their 3 sons. This arrangement was due to an art fraud scheme that Brian was involved in, which required him to stay at home under house arrest. With Ana frequently away, Brian had to step up and ensure the boys were all taken care of. He made it his goal to provide a loving and nurturing home for them. Brian knew his boys were relying on him for everything, and he took that responsibility seriously. He dedicated his time to being there for them and providing them with all the care and attention they needed. In addition to providing a loving home, Brian also took on additional responsibility. He made sure the house was organized and running smoothly. On New Year's Eve 2022, Ana and Brian's close friend arrived at their home at 8:30 p.m. to celebrate the holiday. Ana greeted the friend at the door happily and in good spirits as Brian cooked dinner in the kitchen. Throughout the night, the trio engaged in various activities, including taking photos and making plans for the future. The friend left at 1:30 a.m., and at that time, nothing seemed wrong at the Walsh household. Later on New Year's Day, the friend texted Ana and Brian to thank them for the fun night. However, Ana never responded, and only Brian wrote back. Considering her usual promptness, it seemed odd that Ana would not reply, but her friend thought nothing of it. Ana had a flight booked on January 3rd from Logan International Airport to Washington, D.C. But on January 4th, her superiors at Tishman Speyer and her husband Brian reported her missing. When the detectives investigating Ana's disappearance spoke to her husband Brian, he explained that on January 1st, 2022, Ana left the house early to get a flight from Logan International Airport to Washington, D.C. due to a work emergency. Brian stated that Ana took a rideshare service to the airport, but he was asleep when she left. However, the detectives could not confirm that Ana had called an Uber or Lyft or had gotten on a flight on January 1st. Additionally, her credit card and debit cards had not been used. The detectives asked their counterparts in Washington, D.C. to check Ana's residence in their city to see if she was there, but they could find no sign of her. A search began in a wooded area near her Cohasset home. Crime scene investigators equipped with canine units combed through the Walsh's property and adjacent land in search of clues. In addition to the local police department, state and regional police departments were deployed to assist in the search and rescue efforts. Over 50 officers were actively involved in the search, utilizing their expertise and resources to locate any signs of Ana. Divers were also involved in the investigation, searching the area's streams for potential leads. Unfortunately, their efforts yielded no sign of Ana. Despite extensive efforts, there was no indication as to where she may have gone. 6 days after Ana vanished, a local police detective received a ransom note demanding $127,000. The email from richardwalker9984@gmail.com at 5:18 p.m. stated, "We have the so-named Ana Walsh here. We had a deal for $127,000, but she messed up. We have her here with us, and if she doesn't pay the money, then she'll never be back. We know that the FBI and police are involved. Good luck finding us." However, the ransom note failed to provide any instructions regarding how the police were to respond or meet the requirements. As the investigation into Ana's disappearance continued, the detectives working on her case uncovered several intriguing details about her husband Brian. In the early 2000s, Brian approached his parents about a real estate deal involving an old, dilapidated home in Lenox. Brian proposed that his father would pay for the renovations, and he would split the profit with him when he sold the property. However, things took a turn when Brian's father invested significant money into the renovations. The renovation project ended up costing Brian's father around $500,000. On the night of the closing, when Brian was supposed to repay his father for his investment, he suddenly disappeared without contacting his family. This incident left Brian's father feeling betrayed, leading to estrangement between them. Furthermore, the detectives learned that in 2019, following the death of Brian's father, he attempted to sell his father's home, even though he was disinherited from the will. Additionally, Brian was accused of writing $30,000 in bad checks. However, the most disturbing information the detectives discovered occurred in 2014, when Ana and Brian were engaged. Ana had called the police and informed them that Brian had threatened to kill her over the phone. However, the case was dropped after Ana stopped cooperating with the authorities. The detectives managed to speak to Ana's mother, who was overseas at the time. According to Ana's mother, Ana begged her to come to the United States the last time they spoke. Ana's mother stated that she had a feeling that something bad was going on. With Ana being missing, and coupled with Brian's threats and legal troubles, Brian emerged as the prime suspect in his wife's disappearance. The detectives discovered that in the days before Ana went missing, Brian had his mother hire a private investigator to track Ana's movements. This decision was made after Brian lost contact with her for 24 hours while she was in Washington, D.C. Brian had become suspicious, convinced that she was cheating on him. Brian spent his days closely monitoring Ana's Instagram and Facebook accounts while she was in D.C., searching for any clues that might indicate she was cheating on him. His suspicions had been growing for some time, and this investigation was only intensifying his doubts. During the investigation into Ana's disappearance, the detectives made a crucial discovery. They learned that Ana had been in a romantic relationship with a man based in Washington, D.C. When detectives contacted the man in question, he assured them that his relationship with Ana was open and honest. They had even spent Christmas Eve together. Based on the man's alibi, he was quickly ruled out as a suspect in Ana's disappearance. Despite this, the fact that Ana was having an affair and that Brian knew about it created a motive for him to have been involved in her disappearance. On January 9th, Brian Walsh was arrested for misleading the police during the investigation. His 3 sons, who were previously under his care, were placed in the custody of the DCFS, Department of Child Family Services. After Brian's arrest for misleading the police, he pleaded not guilty. Brian misled the police by providing false information during questioning. On New Year's Day, he told the detectives that he left his home at 3 p.m. to visit his mother, but got lost because he forgot to take his cell phone. However, upon further investigation, it was discovered that Brian's story did not align with the evidence collected. Detectives received security camera footage from the Whole Foods and CVS, the stores he claimed he stopped at during his alleged journey. Upon reviewing the footage, there was no sign of Brian. Furthermore, he was unable to provide any receipts for the items he said he had purchased there. As a result, detectives were suspicious and thoroughly searched Brian's residence in Cohasset, Massachusetts. In the basement of the Walsh residence, investigators discovered a damaged, bloody knife. This discovery prompted them to take the knife for evidence, testing it at the crime lab. The crime scene investigators carried out an extensive search of Ana and Brian's home, confiscating the couple's and their children's electronic devices. Ana and Brian's sons' iPads were thoroughly examined among the seized devices. Upon processing the iPad, investigators discovered several disturbing searches made by Brian between 5:45 a.m. and 7:47 a.m. in 2023. These searches included queries such as, how long before a body starts to smell, how to stop a body from decomposing, how to bury a dead body, 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to, can you throw away body parts, what does formaldehyde do, can identification be made from partial remains, dismemberment and best ways to dispose of a body, what happens when you put a body in ammonia, hacksaw best tool to dismember, can you be charged with murder without a body, luminol to detect blood, how long for someone to be missing to inherit, how to clean blood from wooden floor, is it better to throw away crime scene clothes or wash them? On January 2nd, 2022, the investigators reviewed CCTV footage that caught Brian Walsh visiting Home Goods and purchasing 3 rugs. Further investigation revealed disturbing Google searches made by Brian Walsh on January 2nd, including searches such as, can you identify a body with broken teeth? Additionally, on that same day, January 2nd, investigators came across Brian Walsh's footage on Home Depot surveillance cameras. He was seen pushing a cart filled with various cleaning items, including mops, brushes, tape, baking soda, goggles, face masks, tarp, drop cloths, rubber gloves, and other items totaling $450. This behavior appeared suspicious, as it suggested a cleanup operation. The detectives obtained further security camera footage, this time from an apartment complex in Abington on January 3rd. This video depicted Brian Walsh walking towards a dumpster carrying a trash bag. Brian's walk and the effort he put into hefting the bag into the dumpster led detectives to conclude that its contents were heavy. However, when investigators arrived at the scene in Abington, they were disappointed to discover that the dumpster's contents had already been taken to the dump site and shredded before being incinerated. This setback hindered their efforts to gather additional evidence, as the trash bag and its potentially incriminating contents had been destroyed. Upon searching the dumpster at Brian's mother's home in January, detectives discovered several items that raised suspicion. Among these were trash bags stained with blood, towels, rags, a Tyvek protective suit, goggles, slippers, and Ana Walsh's COVID-19 vaccination card. A hacksaw, cutting blades, a purse, and boots matching the ones Ana was last seen wearing were found. Furthermore, a portion of a necklace that Ana had worn on New Year's Eve was discovered at the scene. After the items were processed at the crime lab, Ana and Brian's DNA was found on the slippers and the suit. This development further solidified the connection between the two items and strengthened the case against Brian. On the night of January 3rd, Brian returned home and conducted a series of disturbing Google searches. These searches included queries on topics such as what happens to hair on a dead body, what is the rate of decomposition of a body, what is the rate of decomposition on a body found in a plastic bag compared to a body found in a surface in the woods, and can baking soda make a body smell good? These searches raised even more red flags and led the detectives to believe that Brian was contemplating disposing of Ana's body. The detectives also thoroughly searched a trash transfer facility where they discovered bloodstains. On January 18, just over 2 weeks since Ana Walsh had gone missing, Brian Walsh was arrested once again, this time charged with murder and disintegrating a body without authority. According to the prosecutors, Brian Walsh murdered his wife, Ana, by beating her to death. Following the murder, prosecutors said that Brian dismembered Ana's remains and disposed of them in an illicit manner. Ana's mysterious disappearance in the United States sparked widespread media attention and garnered significant attention in the country. The Serbian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through the Serbian Consulate General in New York, actively engaged with the Norfolk District Attorney's Office to obtain information to give Ana's mother, who was residing in Serbia. In 2024, Brian Walsh was sentenced to a 37-month prison term for an art fraud case. During the summer of the same year, the prosecution informed the media that they were still waiting for the DNA test results on all the evidence collected. However, they expressed confidence that the answers were forthcoming and anticipated receiving the results soon. Brian's case has undergone a significant change as his defense attorney has decided to step down from representing him in court. His defense attorney, who had been working on his case, ultimately decided he could no longer effectively fulfill his duties. As a result, Brian's case was transferred to the public defender, Larry Tipton, an experienced attorney who specializes in representing clients facing criminal charges. When a case is transferred from one attorney to another, the new attorney must review all relevant information and evidence gathered throughout the legal process. This discovery process allows the new attorney to familiarize themselves with the case, identify potential weaknesses, and develop an effective defense strategy. In Brian's case, the discovery review process has proven particularly challenging. With over 1,000 pages of discovery to review, Larry Tipton was faced with a significant task. In January 2023, a psychotherapist named Dr. Robbie Ludwig spoke to News Nation and offered a speculative opinion on the situation involving Ana Walsh and her marriage. According to Dr. Ludwig, she believed that Ana may have been in an abusive relationship and danger. Dr. Ludwig's statements were based on her own experiences and opinions, as she neither knew or treated either Ana nor her husband Brian Walsh. While on News Nation, Dr. Ludwig suggested that there may have been underlying dynamics in the relationship between Ana and Brian Walsh. She speculated that Brian may have been intimidated by his wife's financial success and not financially bringing home money. This insecurity, according to Dr. Ludwig, could have exacerbated any mental health issues Brian already faced, such as depression, anxiety, and rage. Dr. Ludwig's theory revolved around the idea that Brian may have felt at risk of losing everything he had, including his wife and their 3 sons, a luxurious home, and pride. During that same segment on News Nation, a picture of Ana was broadcast, and she posted it on Instagram before her disappearance. The image was a selfie that showed Ana with a wound about her eye, and the caption read, "Mild concussion, bruised lip, and a cut." #vulnerability. However, there is no evidence to suggest that Brian had anything to do with the wound on Ana. Ana Walsh's friends and family are deeply concerned about laying her to rest properly, as they believe she deserves a proper funeral. Unfortunately, they lack the necessary resources, and the prime suspect in her disappearance, her husband Brian, is not speaking. As a result, they are unable to carry out the necessary arrangements. Until they solve the mystery surrounding her murder, formal funeral arrangements for Ana have not been made. In the desolate countryside of Iowa, a chilling tale of murder unfolded. A once promising farmer, Todd Mullis, found himself at the center of a chilling crime. The Red Barn, once a place of tranquility, now held the darkest secrets. As the story developed, the detectives discovered a web of secrets, lies, and a twisted mind. Todd, a meticulous planner, carefully plotted his wife's demise, using the unassuming corn rake as his silent accomplice. 38-year-old Amy Mullis was a vibrant woman and a former nurse who cherished her role as a mother to her 3 children. She was married to Todd Mullis, the owner of a successful hog farm in the area. Known among residents of Delaware County, Iowa as a hard worker, Todd was known for his dedication and commitment to his family and farm. As a hog farmer, Amy demonstrated a deep passion for agriculture. Farming was her true calling. Amy took great pride in her farming skills and was committed to the well-being of her animals. She derived immense joy from seeing her farm thrive. Amy also had a fondness for fishing and camping. Spending time outdoors was one of her greatest passions, and Amy cherished every moment she spent in nature. Her love for the outdoors extended to her garden, where Amy spent hours tending to her plants. She loved nothing more than creating a thriving ecosystem in her backyard. Coming from the Midwest, college sports held a special place in Amy's heart. She was a dedicated fan of the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, cheering on her favorite teams with passion and enthusiasm. Her love for athletics extended beyond football and basketball. She closely followed all the sports played at the college. Despite her tomboyish demeanor, Amy had a unique creative side. One of her many passions was designing and making t-shirts. Whether she designed t-shirts for herself, her friends, and her family, or created custom designs for clients, Amy's creativity shone through in each unique t-shirt she crafted. November 10th, 2018, was a chilly day on the Mullis hog farm, and it should have been just like any other day. However, this day took a tragic turn when Todd Mullis called 911 as he raced his truck to the hospital with his injured wife, Amy, in the back of the pickup. Amy and Todd's son Tristan sat beside Amy, holding her in his arms. According to Todd, he found Amy non-responsive and not breathing in the barn on their farm. The dispatcher instructed Todd to pull the truck over to the side of the road and perform CPR on Amy. Todd could be heard heavily breathing as he followed the dispatcher's instructions. With each compression, Todd counted aloud with the dispatcher. Unfortunately, Amy Mullis passed away at the hospital, the same hospital where Amy had once been a nurse, dedicated to saving lives. It was a heartbreaking irony that she was now receiving care there, but unable to be saved. Farm accidents are not uncommon in Delaware County, Iowa, and the consequences can be devastating. Unfortunately, many accidents result in death, and emergency room doctors are all too familiar with the gruesome aftermath. From overturned tractors to farmers suffocating in grain bins, these tragedies are all too common. However, the injuries suffered by Amy during a recent visit to the emergency room did not appear to be the result of an accident. Instead, the doctors noticed that something was amiss. The medical examiner's examination of Amy's body revealed a shocking discovery. There were 6 puncture wounds on her back. Yet the corn rake that Amy's husband Todd claimed he pulled out of her back had only 4 tines. It seemed unlikely that Amy had fallen on the fork not once, but twice, with such force that it pierced her body. This information raised suspicions, and the medical examiner determined Amy's manner of death as a homicide. With this information, an investigation was launched to determine who had committed this heinous crime. Todd Mullis, who found Amy's body, was the first person detectives wanted to speak with. Todd, being Amy's husband, held immense importance in unraveling the truth behind her murder. Todd and his son Tristan made a claim during their initial interview with the police. They stated that they were working in a barn located approximately 100 yards away from a red shed, where Todd would later discover the body of his wife Amy. However, Tristan insisted that his father Todd was with him the entire time in the barn. This claim sparked suspicion among the detectives, who began to question the possibility of an intruder sneaking into the farm and killing Amy. Their investigation led them to consider if an intruder had indeed entered the property and used the corn rake found inside the red shed to carry out the murder. If that was the case, then what motive could an intruder have to want Amy dead? The detectives learned that Amy and Todd's relationship wasn't all sunshine, rainbows, and blissful farm life. During Amy and Todd's marriage, Amy had an extramarital affair in 2013, and in 2018, Amy started to see a local farm manager, Jerry Frazier. After the detectives learned about Amy's indiscretion, they wondered if one of her lovers could have been involved in her murder. However, Jerry's cell records cleared him as a suspect in Amy's murder. They showed he was 45 miles away from the farm where Amy died. As the detectives continued their investigation into the murder of Amy, they uncovered important information about her marriage to Todd. Amy's friend and family revealed that she often expressed unhappiness in her relationship with Todd, but he would not let her go. They stated that Todd begged Amy to stay, but at the same time, he did not trust her and constantly monitored her activities. To delve deeper into Amy's life and uncover any potential motives for her murder, the detectives invited Todd to the police station for questioning. They conducted the interview in an interrogation room to better understand their marriage over the past 5 years. Todd assured the detectives that things between him and Amy had been pretty tight, with a few ups and downs like any couple. However, the detectives were aware of Amy's affair with Jerry Frazier. Messages on Amy's phone indicated that she felt Todd was onto her and suspected that he knew about the affair. The detectives discovered that Amy had been actively making plans to leave Todd, including filing for divorce and making plans to move out. If Amy had successfully ended her relationship with Todd, she would have been entitled to a significant amount of money, which the detective believed could have been a motive for Todd to murder her. Todd continued to deny that he killed Amy. During the 2-hour interrogation, he insisted that Amy had fallen on the corn rake despite evidence to the contrary. The detective determined to elicit a confession from Todd, mentioning Amy's affair with Jerry Frazier. However, Todd denied having any knowledge of this affair. Despite the denials, the detective continued to press Todd, suggesting that Todd feared Amy leaving him and gaining custody of the children as well as ownership of the farm. Todd maintained his innocence throughout, sticking to his story that Amy's death was an accident. Because of the lack of conclusive evidence to hold Todd, the detectives ended the interview with him still a free man. When the detectives questioned Amy and Todd Mullis' neighbors, they learned that Todd could sometimes be inhumane to the animals on his farm. These incidents would occur in front of the children, raising concerns about Todd's behavior. One of the neighbors described Todd as scary, which added to the detectives' suspicions. Further investigation revealed that many people who had been close to Todd in the past had cut him out of their lives. The detectives discovered that 5 years after Amy's first affair, the couple sought counseling in an attempt to fix their marriage. Amy quit her job at the hospital where she was a nurse, according to Todd. He claimed she did this to spend more time with him and their children. However, Amy's friends have a different story to tell. They claim that the couple made a deal, under the terms of which Amy agreed to stop working outside of the home. Todd told her that she needed to remain on the farm with him, where he could keep a watch on her. Todd's reason for monitoring Amy's every move stems from his mistrust of her. He believed that Amy betrayed their trust in their marriage, compelling him to surveil her constantly. According to those who knew Amy and Todd, Todd never truly trusted Amy again. This lack of trust created a suffocating environment for Amy, who began feeling trapped within the confines of her own home. Amy confided in her friends that Todd had an approved friend list for her, and he timed her exits and returns to ensure she didn't have any stops in between. Amy expressed to her confidants that she felt like a captive in her marriage, unable to break free from her husband's control. Although Todd claimed to have an alibi, the detectives were skeptical of his story. Todd and his son Tristan maintained that Todd had been 100 yards away from Amy at the time of the murder. However, the detectives were concerned about the strong bond between Todd and his son, fearing that Todd could potentially coach his children in a way that benefited his case. Compounding their concerns, the detectives discovered security cameras around the farm. However, none of the cameras were functioning during the time of Amy's murder. This info raised suspicions, as the recordings resumed functioning shortly after the incident. Todd continued to maintain that Amy's death in the barn was a freak accident. He He claimed that she had an operation several days earlier, which left her unsteady on her feet, and that she could have tripped or gotten dizzy, leading her to fall on the corn rake. Despite Todd's claims of innocence, the detectives continued to investigate and gather evidence, focusing on any potential links between Todd and Amy's death. The detectives eventually discovered crucial evidence on electronic devices seized from Amy and Todd's home. They found a series of disturbing searches through their access to Todd's iPad. Todd's iPad revealed Google searches for topics such as, what did the Aztecs do with cheating spouses? Placement of the organs in the body, 16 facts about cheating women, once a cheater, always a cheater, did ancient cultures kill adulterers, thrill of the kill, killing unfaithful women, and punishment is 18 months for killing a cheating wife. These searches raised suspicions and cast doubt on Todd's claim that Amy's death was purely accidental. The content of the searches, particularly those related to cheating spouses and murder, suggested a sinister motive behind Amy's death. Further, the detectives found the timing of these search engine results suspicious, as they started when Amy started her affair with Jerry. With those incriminating Google searches, the detectives made their way to Todd Mullis's farm. Upon entering the barn, they located Todd inside. The detective asked him to step outside where they could talk. Once Todd complied, the detective informed him that they had an arrest warrant for him on charges of first-degree murder in relation to Amy's death. Todd was arrested and taken into custody, where he pled not guilty and was subsequently held behind bars until his trial in 2019. During his time in prison, Todd gained a surprising amount of support and followers. A large portion of his supporters were women, who formed a Facebook group dedicated to sharing their thoughts and promoting his innocence. The group became a platform where members discussed Todd's situation, voicing their belief in his innocence and advocating for his release. As Todd's trial unfolded, the courtroom was packed with his and Amy's loved ones. The gallery was divided, with Todd's family and friends sitting on one side of the courtroom and Amy's loved ones on the other. There was a palpable tension in the air that could be cut with a knife as the emotions ran high on both sides. In his opening statements, Todd's defense attorneys put forth the argument that he was a dedicated husband and father, while claiming that Amy had been engaging in a sexual affair with Jerry Frazier behind Todd's back. The defense team came prepared with a surprise, abruptly changing their position and stating that Amy did not die accidentally, but was murdered with a corn rake in the barn. However, they maintained that it was not Todd who killed her. The defense argued that Todd's initial statement that Amy died by accidentally falling on the corn rake was an honest mistake. They contended that Todd had misunderstood the situation, believing it to be an accident. On the other hand, the prosecution had to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Amy's affair with Jerry Frazier, her intention to divorce Todd, take the kids and half the farm, was the motive behind Todd murdering her. Friends of Amy testified on behalf of the prosecution, alleging that Amy had been constantly upset and crying about her marriage with Todd. These friends revealed that Amy had confided in him that Todd had told her that the farm had been in his family since he was 11 years old, and that he would not give even an acre up to her if she was to divorce him. This revelation painted a chilling picture of Todd's possessive and controlling behavior, leaving Amy's friends concerned about her safety. One friend who had witnessed Amy's distress was particularly worried. She told Amy that she feared Todd was going to kill her. This friend knew that Todd was not the type of person who could be messed with, and she had a genuine concern for Amy's well-being. Unfortunately, her fears proved to be prophetic. One of the key witnesses in Todd's trial was Jerry Frazier, Amy's lover. Jerry took the stand and confirmed his alibi, providing proof to the jury that he had no opportunity to murder Amy. Jerry told the jury that he and Amy met regularly, perhaps more than once per week, for clandestine rendezvous. These meetings took place in secret locations, primarily on their farms or along back roads. Sometimes they utilized motels as meeting places. Jerry revealed to the jury that Amy had confided in him that if Todd were to find out about their affair, he would make Amy disappear. That confession shed light on the intensity of Todd's jealousy and his anger towards Amy. It painted a picture of a violent and dangerous relationship, where Amy feared for her life if her secret were exposed. Tristan, Amy, and Todd's oldest son, and Todd's alibi testified from a remote location via the internet. On the day Amy died in 2018, Tristan had maintained that he was with his father Todd the entire time in the barn located 100 yards away from the crime scene. However, when Tristan testified in 2019 during Todd's trial, his story changed. Instead of asserting that his father was with him the entire day, Tristan claimed that he had gone inside the house to get water while Todd remained alone in the barn. This revision in his testimony presented a significant blow to the defense, as it provided Todd with some time to walk to the red shed where Amy was working, kill her with the corn rake, and return to the barn 100 yards away, all before Tristan arrived back from getting water. To try and bolster his defense, Todd decided to testify, although defense attorneys usually advise against that. Todd believed that by directly telling his story to the jury, he would be able to communicate his innocence more effectively. He argued that his son, Tristan, was only out of the barn for a matter of seconds during that time. He remained in the barn working and never left. The prosecutor, however, was not convinced by Todd's testimony. During cross-examination, the prosecutor brought up the suspicious Google searches that investigators had recovered from Todd's iPad. These searches suggested Todd's interest in obtaining information about infidelity. Todd denied doing those searches and claimed he had no idea how they ended up on his device. However, Todd's denial did not deter the prosecutor, who had access to additional evidence. The state attorney received a phone call from someone who had watched the trial at home on court TV. This person claimed to have analyzed Todd's 911 call to the dispatcher and felt they had detected whispering under Todd's breath as he performed CPR on Amy. According to the caller, they had heard Todd saying "cheating whore" and "go to hell, cheating whore" during the call. This information surprised everyone involved in the case. If the caller's claim were true, it could have significant implications for Todd's defense. The prosecutor would now have to consider this new evidence and its potential impact on the case. The prosecution confronted Todd with the alleged whispers on the 911 call and asked him about it, but Todd claimed he did not remember what he was whispering under his breath during that time. Despite Todd's denial, the prosecution was certain that he was uttering those awful things to Amy as she was dying. Their reasoning was based on the belief that Todd, the person who murdered Amy, was furious with her for cheating on him with Jerry Frazier. At the end of the trial, the jury found Todd guilty. According to the jurors who spoke 48 hours after the trial, during deliberations, they explored various scenarios in an attempt to make sense of Todd Mullis' peculiar behavior on the day Amy died. However, they were unable to establish a plausible explanation for his actions. One perplexing aspect was Todd's decision to remove the corn rake from Amy's back. This action raised doubt about his motives and intentions. The jurors could not understand why he would remove the rake, pick her up, place her in his pickup truck, and then drive her to the hospital before calling 911. It seemed to the jurors that Todd's actions were driven by a desire to quickly remove Amy from the farm and take her away from the crime scene. Furthermore, the jurors believed Todd did not do himself any favors when he testified in his defense. They found him cold and detached, displaying little emotions even when discussing his deceased wife and children. This lack of emotional connection further fueled speculation about his guilt. What sealed Todd's fate with a guilty verdict for murdering his wife Amy was the incriminating internet searches he made. According to the jurors, these search results were pivotal in proving that Todd's actions were premeditated and driven by a desire to carry out a cold-blooded murder. The jurors believed that Todd's internet searches, which delved into disturbing information regarding cheating spouses and killing, were significant evidence against him. These searches, according to the jurors, painted a picture of a calculated and deliberate attempt to gain information about murder, rather than a crime of passion where Todd was overcome with jealousy during a fight with Amy regarding her affair with Jerry Frazier. Todd's sentencing hearing was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During this period, Todd hired a new defense attorney, who filed a motion seeking to dismiss the conviction based on prosecutorial misconduct. However, the judge dismissed this motion, and Todd was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2023, Todd Mullis filed a petition for a retrial, arguing that the material facts had not been presented or heard during the original trial, which necessitated a reversal of his conviction. Todd asserted that his trial counsel had failed to follow the defense strategy he had requested, and he wanted to present the argument that Amy's death was accidental rather than a murder. However, his defense attorney instead pursued the theory that Amy's death was a homicide. The Todd Mullis case is a chilling and tragic tale of love, betrayal, and ultimately, murder. Todd's actions were driven by jealousy and a desire to control his wife. He constantly monitored her every move, seeking out any perceived signs of infidelity. Testimony from Amy's friends and family painted a disturbing picture of Todd's erratic behavior and violent tendencies. In conclusion, Amy Mullis's murder serves as a compelling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. The dedication and determination of law enforcement, coupled with the power of evidence, allowed justice to be served. Growing up in a loving family, pursuing dreams, and becoming a role model in her community is something many young girls aspire to. Ashley Doolittle was no different. Born on May 20th, 1998, in Louisville, Colorado, she was a bright and energetic girl who found her passion for horses at just 5 years old. Her love for horseback riding became her identity, which led her to the rodeo world. By the age of 18, she was crowned Lady-in-Waiting, one step away from becoming a rodeo queen. She had her eyes set on promising college life ahead as well. But what seemed like the perfect life would soon be shattered by a tragedy that no one saw coming. A tragedy that would destroy not one, but 2 families. On the evening of June 9th, 2016, the seemingly ordinary day for 18-year-old Ashley Doolittle took a horrifying turn. Ashley, a beloved figure in her community, an aspiring rodeo queen, had planned a meetup with her ex-boyfriend, Tanner Flores. The Lon Hagler Reservoir was the location the couple had agreed to meet and discuss their troubled relationship. Ashley, not knowing what fate had in store for her, entered Tanner's truck. What started out as a conversation about a relationship would soon take a horrific turn, one that no one in Colorado, even in their worst nightmare, would have imagined. A cold-blooded murder of a teenage girl who was once a symbol of positivity and hope in her community. Ashley Doolittle was born on May 20th, 1998, in Louisville, Colorado, to Marie and Jeff. From a very young age, she was known to have a type of energy and aura about her that drew others closer. She had 2 brothers, Brandon and Michael, and was fortunate enough to have grown up in a family that always loved her and prioritized her dreams. Ashley, by the age of just 5, had her very first pony, and from that day forward, she never looked back on anything else. Her passion for horseback riding was truly immense and fostered at a very young age as well. It was something that really became a part of her identity. She had a profound love for horses and developed a sense of community early on, which is what gave her a purpose in life. A few years later, at the age of just 8, she began to ride in horse shows and completely fell in love with the rodeo community and lifestyle. She was involved in rodeo activities all the time and had some profound achievements to her name. In 2016, when Ashley was around 18 years old, she was crowned Lady-in-Waiting. The title holds prestige value in the rodeo community and was given to someone who would work alongside the rodeo queen to truly embody the spirit. It comes with a lot of different responsibilities that include things like planning fundraisers, helping prepare sponsors, attending community events, learning to be an event spokesperson, and much more. Having received such a title was a huge honor for her, and it meant that she was only a year away from becoming rodeo queen herself. She became quite well known for her commitment to the rodeo community, and was seen as a role model by many teenage girls who aspired to be just like her. Oftentimes, young girls would come up to her and ask for her autograph, shedding some light on her character. Ashley was the type of person who would write a personal note to each person who came up for an autograph. It was a sweet and caring gesture. And in the note, she would encourage the reader to keep pursuing their dreams. Apart from this, Ashley was also an active part of the Boulder County 4 Horse Program, which seeks to encourage young children to get involved in the horseback riding community. She also competed on lots of horse judging and hippology teams, used to ride in horse bows, and was even named the champion high individual in the National 4-H Western Roundup. But this wasn't the sum of her ambitions. Ashley was also a founding member and a 2-time vice president of the Thomas Valley FFA. The Future Farmers of America, FFA, was an Incur student organization catering to the interests of those who wanted to be involved in agriculture and leadership. Ashley had quite a lot going on for her during her time and wanted to pursue the FFA at the state level when she started college. She graduated from Berthoud High in May of 2016 and had plans to attend Colorado State University. There, she would major in agriculture business. She had her eyes set on the next chapter in life and didn't know that it would not begin. Her life was ripped to shreds by one person who decided that if he couldn't have her, then the world wouldn't either. That one person was Tanner Flores. Ashley had met Tanner back in high school, and both of them were in a relationship that appeared to be normal to the outside world. Think of it like a typical teenage romance. However, the young couple did have their troubles. Tanner was said to be very controlling of Ashley, controlling to a point where he dictated what she could and couldn't do. He even forbade her from attending parties at college, which didn't make much sense since Ashley was not known for being the party type anyway. So, was he just jealous of her achievements? Did he want to keep her all to himself? Was he insecure that he'd lose her to someone better? Regardless of what he felt, he always took these personal issues or concerns out on Ashley in different ways, who was fed up with all this. After a year into the relationship, she knew that Tanner wasn't right for her and decided to break up with him. The decision, as it turns out, was not so straightforward for Tanner. On June 4th, 2016, Tanner requested that he and Ashley go on a hike in Estes Park and discuss their relationship. He probably didn't understand what it meant to have a discussion, because even though Ashley had broken up, he thought the discussion went great and the two were back together. He either didn't get the message or didn't want to accept it. The following day, Ashley had gone out with some friends to the Sundance Steakhouse and Saloon, and Tanner showed up there as well. Witnesses at the location say that Tanner at some point grabbed her, twirled her around in his direction, and attempted to talk with her. However, Ashley was so fed up by all this and wanted nothing to do with Tanner. She ended up leaving the location, but the next day, Tanner convinced her to meet him again at Lon Hagler Reservoir so the two could talk. By the time the conversation ended, Tanner somehow thought they were back together, even though Ashley had stated that they weren't. The day after that, Ashley went back to the Sundance Steakhouse and Saloon. This time she even reached out to Tanner and told him not to come because she didn't want to see him again. Tanner, however, came up with a lie, claiming his keys were locked inside his truck, and he needed Ashley to come pick him up. But Ashley just ignored this message. 4 days after the hike, on June 8th, Ashley agreed to go and sell some scrap metal with Tanner. At the time, she didn't know this would mark the initiation of a horrific life event. That day, Tanner ended up going through her phone and found that she'd been texting 2 other guys. He thought Ashley was flirting with the other guys and accused her of cheating. At the time, both Ashley and Tanner had not gotten back together. Later that night, Tanner contacted the 2 guys and made Ashley really angry. Then Tanner texted Ashley the following message: "I hope you realize what you threw away. I gave you everything and spent so much money on you. You were too busy trying to fuck Tori and Jared behind my back. You were nothing near loyal. I'm going to do something stupid now. Bye." Ashley actually responded, trying to defend herself, and up until this point, she wanted to remain friends with him, but things had gotten a bit too far. The next day, Tanner again messaged Ashley, asking if the 2 of them could meet up and talk. She told him that she had been in Denver that morning, but she would be able to meet him later in the day. While Ashley was in Denver, Tanner borrowed his dad's pistol and went to shoot at Carter Lake, claiming that it would help him decompress. He continued to text Ashley throughout the day, and in one of the texts, he even stated he missed her. Ashley was so annoyed by all of this that she ended up texting him, "Stop," but she had agreed to meet him later in the day simply because she didn't like being a rude or unkind person. During the afternoon of June 9th, both of them got together at the Lon Hagler Reservoir, where Ashley went inside Tanner's truck. Little did she know, it would be the last thing she ever did. At around 7:30 p.m., her parents went out to look for her because she hadn't come home by that time. 30 minutes later, at 8 p.m., they found her car in one of the parking spaces at the reservoir. Both Jeff and Marie were certain that Ashley would have texted them if she was planning to be late. Given this, they came to the conclusion that something wasn't right and immediately called the sheriff's office and reported her missing. Local authorities were quick to jump in on the action and initiate search efforts. They began calling Ashley's friends and family members to gather any information they could. During their efforts, one thing that stood out the most was that everyone kept mentioning the name Tanner. The authorities soon learned that Tanner and Ashley were in a relationship and had a breakup. They were made aware of Tanner's distraught over the separation, and one person even told them that Tanner had posted something on Snapchat that made him believe that he was suicidal. Other people the authorities spoke to told them that they had never seen Tanner so depressed. Soon after,
Tanner's father came forward and told the officers that his .22 caliber revolver was missing from a locked gun safe, and Tanner knew where the key was. A be on the lookout was issued for Tanner's truck. Officers all around Colorado were put on alert, and the search efforts were at peak by that time. The efforts concluded at 8 a.m. the following morning, and Tanner's location had been identified. Authorities had received a call during which they were told that the truck was seen on his deceased grandfather's property in Call Barn, Colorado. The location was on the other side of the state, and around 5 hours away from where those involved in the entire event resided. It was later revealed that Tanner's grandmother had called a neighbor to confirm if the truck was indeed on the property, and, upon confirmation, reported it to law enforcement. Given the distance of the location, assembling a team to make an arrest would take some time, so the authorities decided to have a wildlife ranger go to the property to keep an eye on Tanner so he couldn't escape. While Tanner did not make any attempts to flee the location, he did do some other things that can be described as very disturbing. The neighbor whom Tanner's grandmother had called and the wildlife ranger watched as Tanner began throwing rags soaked with blood into a nearby field. He also moved a roll-up mat into a woodpile behind the house, and what they saw next was utterly horrific. Tanner came out of the house with a heavy blanket and put it on the back seat of his truck. The blanket appeared to be quite heavy for him to carry. Sticking outside of it was a human arm, but this time it was pretty clear what Tanner had done, and might have gotten away with, too. But, luckily, an arrest was made later that morning. The sheriff's deputies, CBI agents, and members of 3 additional law enforcements made it to the property. They made the arrest without any incidents at the property. And when they went to Tanner's truck and opened up the blanket he had placed on the back seat, it was the corpse of Ashley Marie Doolittle. At this point, no life-saving measures could have been taken, and everyone's worst nightmare had turned into a reality. Tanner initially told the officers that the two of them were discussing their relationship in his truck, and Ashley was the one who lost control. Tanner's initial story was that Ashley grabbed the gun and pointed it at her head. He said that he tried to wrestle the gun away from her, but during the struggle, it went off, and she was shot. He went on to say that he shot her 2 times after to end her pain and suffering because the first shot didn't kill her. After hearing this, the officer told him that he was not buying any of it, and after a few minutes, Tanner came clean. Since Ashley was dead by that time, the only details that could be delivered were to come from Tanner. He told the officer that he and Ashley had got together at Long Hagler Reservoir, and from there they drove west towards Carter Lake. This is the same lake Tanner had visited earlier in the day to practice shooting. According to Tanner, this is where they discussed their relationship. Ashley told him that she didn't want to patch things up with him, but would marry him later in life, and right now needs time to explore other relationships. After this conversation, they started to drive back to where Ashley's car was parked, and that's when things went south. He said that Ashley glared at him during the drive back, and that's all it took. He reached into the back seat, grabbed the revolver, and shot Ashley in the back of the head, not once, but twice. Tanner claims that she didn't die right away, which is why he had to shoot her a 3rd time. According to Tanner, the 3rd shot was intended to end her suffering. After that, he tried to clean her body as best he could, and drove off to his deceased grandfather's property located at the other end of the state. Once he had given his statement, he was held in the Mesa County Jail without bail. Ashley's funeral took place on June 17th at St. John Evangelist Catholic Parish in Loveland, Colorado. Everyone at the ceremony, her family, friends, and other community members, totaling up to over 700, were all devastated by what happened. The teenage girl was once the reason for hope, happiness, and aspiration for the community, was now mourned. Her mother, Marie Doolittle, said that she didn't want her daughter to be remembered for the way she died, but for how she lived. She wanted Ashley's memory to be that of a full-of-life 18-year-old girl who accomplished so much and set herself up for her own success. The age of 18 is a strange time in life for many. During this age, it's often hard to figure out what you're really going to do with your life. Passion, profession, college. There's just so much going on that the sheer number of options can be overwhelming for anyone. But this wasn't the case for Ashley. The options weren't overwhelming for her at all. In fact, she achieved greatness in almost everything she took part in. That's just who she was. At an age when many are confused about their life, Ashley had it planned out. But who knew those plans would be cut short? From all who attended her funeral, she was described as fun, smiling, goofy, and down to earth. She was the lady in waiting to be the rodeo queen, and would have been queen next year. But during the upcoming season, she will now be remembered and memorialized. Ashley had done so much for the community, and the funeral was indeed an enormous one. But apart from the ceremony, a few other things also took place on that day. The FBI announced that it would be assisting Larimer County in the investigation and would help with evidence and search and recovery. Tanner, who was previously held at Mesa County Jail, was also transferred to the Larimer County Jail on the same day Ashley was being put to rest. The pursuit of justice for the Doolittle family was about to begin. On June 20th, Tanner made his first court appearance and was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping. The basis for the kidnapping charges was based on the presumed fact that Tanner didn't let Ashley get out of the truck when she wanted to. Grief, pain, suffering, and agony would all continue to be a part of daily life for the Doolittle family after Ashley was in her final resting place. The family would have to wait a year and a half until legal proceedings began. In October 2017, the trial officially began and the courtroom was filled with family and friends of both teens. It was clear to everyone that Tanner had killed Ashley. The only question that was to be answered was whether it was a premeditative act or not. The prosecution believed and argued that the killing was planned out. They claimed that Tanner had gone out to the lake earlier in the morning to test the revolver and find an isolated location to commit the murder. But this wasn't their only claim. The prosecution also mentioned that the revolver used for killing was a single-action firearm, meaning that the firing mechanism had to be manually reset after each shot. Given that Ashley was shot 3 times, the prosecution mentioned that the killing had to be one out of deliberation, not one out of the heat of the moment. The defense, however, argued that it wasn't a planned killing, and that second-degree murder would be a fair charge. During the trial, Tanner took the stand, testified, and told the horrific details of the entire incident. In his testimony, he never denied what he did, but he fully denied that he had planned to do it. Some other details that weren't part of his initial statement upon arrest were also revealed. He told the court that he threw both their phones out of the truck after the murder. However, before throwing out Ashley's phone, he texted himself, pretending to be her. The texts mainly stated that both of them were together that afternoon, and that Ashley was not going to meet him. But these details only looked like a failed attempt to distance himself and cover up his tracks. However, the next detail he revealed is one that shook everyone to their core. The night before he was arrested, he went to his deceased grandfather's property and broke the glass sliding door to gain access to the property. Once there, he cleaned up some of the blood, turned on the TV, and watched some cartoons before falling asleep. Yes, cartoons. How is it possible for one to love another so much they can't see them with anyone else, but still have the audacity to murder their beloved and watch TV afterward? This is a question that remains unanswered. At the end of the trial, both families had suffered an immense loss. They lost their children and the lives planned ahead. With that verdict came justice for Ashley, but also a dead end for Tanner. The pain either of the families experienced can only be described as unbearable. Justice had prevailed, but no one won the case in this bitter reality. 2 families were destroyed and ripped to shreds in the process. But the case shed light on a much bigger part of life: breakup violence. In the United States, 1.5 million high school students experience physical abuse from a dating partner on an annual basis, and 1 in 3 U.S. teens aged between 14 to 20 have been victims of dating violence. Despite this, 81% of parents believe that teen dating violence is not an issue. Marie and Jeff Doolittle recognized that not enough conversation was happening around a reality that took their daughter from them, and the reality that many other Ashleys would be living in the U.S. and other parts of the world. To combat this and raise awareness, Ashley's parents started the Ashley Doolittle Foundation. With this non-profit organization, they aim to preserve the legacy of their daughter and wish to continue giving back to the community the way Ashley did. Today, the foundation aims to build awareness and prevent teen dating violence, give victims the opportunity to connect with the right support groups, launch programs in schools, and discuss the signs of dating violence with students and parents. Ashley's mother says that they started the foundation to keep her memory alive. Her exact words during the initial days of the foundation were, "We want some good to come out of this through the Ashley Doolittle Foundation, and try to prevent this from happening to other families, so others don't have to go through what we went through." The case of Ashley Doolittle serves as a severe reminder of the dangers that bloom in teenage relationships. While not all relationships follow the trajectory of Tanner and Ashley, some still do. And it's important to understand that violence, be it physical, verbal, or even psychological, is not acceptable, and if ignored, it can lead to dire consequences, similar to those Ashley had to suffer. Her killer, Tanner, on October 4th, 2017, was found guilty of murder and second-degree kidnapping, and was sentenced to life in prison without parole and an additional 32 years.